The Bears head to the desert and take on Kyler Murray and the rest of the Cardinals. Let's figure out if the Bears can bounce back after the disaster in the nation's capital. Next. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Four-Star Chicago Sportscast. We are the Barely There podcast, and we are going to dive into the Bears' trip to Arizona as they take on the Dachshund of the Desert, Kyler Murray, and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. Before we get into that, we want to touch on a little Bears news that's come out this week. And, you know, Kyle, it's been a little distressing for us Bears fans, you know, the disaster in the nation's capital that turned out, you know, snatching the thrill of victory and turning it into the agony of defeat. And it all comes down to me to this coaching staff and just being the new things that have been called out and some of the new evidence that just is around Matt Eberflus. And this is one of the reasons why I did not want this guy to be retained back in January. And I still don't want him here now. And I'm sorry if I'm a little long-winded here, but here's my thing, man. You know, it was really troubling for us to go into that game or come out of that game and hear some of the comments from Jalen Johnson. You know, one of the things he said was the Bears should have taken a timeout. He said the call that led up to the Hail Mary felt very rushed. If you watch that replay, the Bears defenders were sitting in the huddle with their arms up in the air. You're talking about the defensive guru, the captain. This guy, Matt Eberflus, is supposed to be leading this defense and be the guy. Just a terrible course of events that happened there. Some other troubling things that keep rearing their ugly head. He's 3-17 on the road. The Bears' last road victory is December 26, 2001. It was a 25-24 victory at Seattle. And ever since then, it's just been putrid.
2021, right?
2021, yes, I'm sorry. He's 2-13 against winning teams, you know, and in the last 21 games, the Bears have lost 10. 3 of those they had over a 95% chance to win. 1 was 90. That again comes down to what we have is called in-game decisions, just mind-boggling mistakes, asinine decisions, not being prepared, having no readiness. This comes to the coordinators because when we all talk about the talent, I don't think this team has a talent problem at all. I think we have a staff problem that continues to put this talented roster in poor positions to win football games. Cole Kmet, Kevin Byard, Jalen Johnson, djmoore. These are the captains of your team. They all came out. djmoore saying, we should have never run that play. Never thought I'd see it in a game like this. That was that important. Jalen Johnson, in his interview on The Score, Sports Radio 670, saying the things that we screw up in practice, we do not go back and correct. My Lord, Kyle, you gotta get me off the ledge here, man, because the play designs, the play callers, this whole thing, which we thought was gonna look a lot better, is kind of a mess. Help me out here, man. Help me get off the edge. Really quick, what's going on at Mass? Thanks for joining us. Breaking news, Bruce Plank. Appreciate y'all being in here, man. Really do.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, Sean, I don't know if I'm able to talk you off that ledge. I mean, unless, as far as I'm concerned, unless the Bears play an inferior competitor and they completely blow the team out, the Bears are going to be involved in a lot of close games this season. And as far as I can tell, I mean, so far to this point, Matt Eberflus is not good at closing out games. He's just not. I mean, they had a 21-point lead against Denver last year. They had a double-digit lead against Detroit. They had a double-digit lead against the Browns, and they somehow managed to lose all those games. And then on Sunday, there was 25 seconds to make sure that the Washington Commanders, who could accumulate 12 points all game, couldn't go the entire field to score a touchdown, and the Bears failed to stop them. I mean, this is just kind of – I mean, after a while, Sean, when you're talking about years and years and years – these patterns become who you are, right? I mean,
Right.
this is who Matt Eberflus is. Matt Eberflus is a great defensive coordinator. I'm not taking that away from him.
100%.
This defense continues to dominate the NFL. They're going to finish in the top 5. They've gotten better every single year since he's been there. They never give up on him. But I just don't think he's good at the intangibles. I don't think he's good at situational football. I don't think he calls the right plays at the right times. I don't think he's a good leader of men. I don't think he's a good discipliner. I think there's just a lot of things. I think the negatives outweigh the positives when it comes to Matt Eberflus. And like you said last week, Sean, I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm not here to sit here and say Matt Eberflus is a terrible human being. And all Bears fans should hate him.
I don't know.
He's probably a very nice guy. He's just not. I don't think he's a very good head coach in the NFL. That's the problem I have with him. And I'm sorry, Sean, but there's nothing I can tell you right now that's going to change that for me, especially with coming off that Hail Mary so fresh in our mind. I mean, that to me right now, at this point, Matt Eberflus is 2.5 years from the Chicago Bears. That is his biggest failure. That game was you needed to win that game. You went, especially with the way that the Bears went down there and Caleb did something we've never asked him to do until Sunday. Go win the game with 2 minutes left on the clock. Well, I mean, I guess they asked him to do that against Indianapolis, but that strip sack just kind of ruined the whole thing. And I honestly believe that if they didn't strip the ball out of his hand in that game, I think Caleb Williams probably would have walked down the field and scored a touchdown in that game, out of the game, because the Colts couldn't stop them in the fourth quarter. But, it's like you ask your rookie quarterback, to go out there and win the game. He's been struggling all game. He puts it all behind him. He goes out there and makes the necessary plays, takes the lead. You get the 2-point conversion. All Bears fans are on this huge high, and then 25 seconds later, we're sitting here. I just don't see, to me personally, unless the guy wins out or wins at least 80% of the rest of the games on the schedule, I don't see how you can make an argument to keep Matt Eberflus here. I mean, there's just so many mistakes made on the final 30 seconds of that game that it's just to me are unexcusable.
Dano says, Flus is okay to take a team from point A to point B, but we need someone to get us to point C, as in championships. And Dano, I agree with that sentiment exactly, because I've been saying this for a little while. I said it at the end of the year, and I keep saying it. He's our Doug Collins, and we need to go find our Phil Jackson. I mean, if you guys remember Mark Trestman, I think he was 14-19 or 13-19 or something, and he lost the locker room, and he got fired. I know everyone keeps saying to themselves that Lovie Smith lost his job on a winning record, but if you go back to that year, they came out of the gates, they won, I think, 8 of their first 10 games, and then they didn't finish the season solid. So I think that's what kind of made the decision to let him go. But where I'm going with this is saying, when your captains are coming out and you're saying this, they're saying things and they're talking about the coaching staff like this, this is such an indictment. Honestly, in all my years of watching football, and Kyle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, have you ever seen team captains come out and question in the media play calling, practice play, just overall decisions and how the football team is being run? I personally, myself, I've never seen this. This was so new to me. And to me, it just tells me the same things are happening in this locker room and around this team that have been happening, and these players want change. That's the only thing I can take away from it, because and I'll just say the dumbest thing that that's still in my brain is Eberflus saying that 15 yards didn't matter. And you have Dan Quinn in his press conference saying, oh my God, that 15 yards was the most important play for us that got us in position. You know why? Because no one's ever heard of a freaking 80-yard Hail Mary in their lives. And the other thing, and this is the thing that worries me, and this is, I want to touch on this with you too, Kyle. I mean, Poles has publicly backed this guy. So what does that say for me to you about Ryan Poles? Because he's publicly backed them. This is his guy. Do we trust him to make the decision to change head coaches and make the right decision? What's going on, Darius? Thanks for checking in.
When it comes to Ryan Poles, that could be a very long conversation. I mean, first of all, I don't know necessarily how much Ryan Poles is allowed to dictate that decision. Now, for instance, when Matt Eberflus got here, when Ryan Poles got the job as GM, the Bears had hired Bill Polian to find them a head football coach. When Ryan Poles got here, they basically narrowed it down. As far as we can tell, they narrowed it down to Dan Quinn or Matt Eberflus. And I believe Ryan Poles probably is the one who chose Matt Eberflus. And then Ryan Poles is also the one who chose to retain him last year. But Sean, like we've talked about for years now, The Bears are not big on firing people. Actually, you can go down to Chicago sports, Bulls, Blackhawks. None of them are really big on firing people. So I'm not sure that any GM in Chicago is just given that opportunity. Like, hey, I don't think that George McCaskey is necessarily telling Ryan Poles, like, hey, you got the keys to the car. You can do whatever you want. You want to fire the coach? Fire the coach. You want to do this? I don't. It's just never. The McCaskies don't seem like those types of people to me, and I've never seen them do that in the past. So why would we think it's any different now? I'm not saying that Ryan Poles didn't retain Matt Eberflus. Another reason he may have done that is because it's as much as Matt Eberflus has proven that he's not a winning head football coach in the NFL. Another thing that is not good for a football team is changing the coach year after year after year after year. We've seen how that goes in Chicago, Sean. We saw them do it with Jay Cutler in the offensive coordinator position. Yeah. They kept changing the offensive coordinator position time and time again, and it never worked out. They could never build any cohesiveness, and Jay Cutler could never get any consistency because he had to learn a new playbook every single year. I think that kind of played a role in what's happening with the Chicago Bears. I think part of the reason he kept Matt Eberflus is like, well, they came on strong last year. They won their last 8 games.
Yeah.
The defense looked a lot better. They looked like they're still playing for this guy. I think right now the best case scenario for us going into this draft and deciding to draft a quarterback would probably be to have some consistency. But I mean, you can make an argument that the correct decision would have been exactly the opposite, right? Like you go get an offensive coach when you're going to draft a rookie quarterback. And not only that, man, but usually the way the teams build is they build from the top down. So what they do is they hire the president of football operations, then he hires the GM hires a coach, the coach hires the coordinators. The Bears just did everything backwards. So it's almost like this thing never stood a chance, right? And they've done this numerous times. This isn't the first time the Chicago Bears have done this. I mean, they basically had chosen who their coaches were going to be before Ryan Poles, the GM, was even the manager. I mean, how fair is that to say, hey, we're going to hire you on as the GM of the Chicago Bears, but we're going to pick your coaches. We're going to pick. I mean, you can't do that. That's not fair. You should let this guy. I think Ryan Poles ultimately is going to end up firing Matt Eberflus at the end of this year, and maybe even before the end of this year. The Bears have never done it before. Maybe they will. They will. I don't know. Who knows? But I think I do trust Ryan Poles to pick his coach, his offensive coach. I think it's going to be an offensive mind. I think he's going to. Ryan Poles is more excited about calebwilliams and the offensive side of the ball than he is defense side of the ball. And that's not to take anything away from the defense, because the defense is the better unit on the Chicago Bears. But you guys, ultimately in the NFL in 2024, offense wins championships. I mean, when you get to the nitty gritty of it, you get the playoffs. Defense means a lot more. But during the regular season, offense. I mean, that's the way that every single team in the NFL is leaning. That's the way this league is going. All these rules have been put in place to favor the offense. Ultimately, I think the Bears should hire a guy like Ben Johnson, a guy who's creative, a guy who can utilize Caleb Williams' skill set, get the most out of him as best we can. Now, Sean, to answer your question, you said you've ever seen this before. I have seen players come out and talk about their coaching or the coaching deficiencies.
3 captains, though?
Yeah. I mean, captains? And you know what? You know, like it happened in Denver last year with Nathaniel Hackett when he was head coach, or 2 years ago when he was head coach there. But I will say this, Sean, I have seen it before, yes, but it's never ended well. I've never seen players calling out the coaches and then all of a sudden they mend this relationship and they end up being a dynasty that wins 3 championships before. No, I've never seen that. Usually when this stuff starts happening, the coach is fired. I mean, that's what, like, you've used the perfect terminology, Sean. I mean, he's losing the locker room is what's happening. Yeah. I mean, these guys think that the Chicago Bears are better than Matt Eberflus is making them look. Absolutely. That's what the player. That's the attitude I'm getting. That's what 100%. I'm getting when I'm listening to these interviews. They think they can win every single game if it wasn't for the head coach and the coaching and Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator.
I will tell you this, Dano. He is my dream too, but I would also accept Clint Kubiak. I would also accept Bobby Slowick. I was hearing today, and I think I don't want to misspeak here. I think it was Courtney Cronin. It was one of the Bears writers today that said Ben Johnson is a dream for us because Bears management will never pay him the type of money he's going to demand. And God, I hope that is not true, because you want to turn this thing around. You want to make it real. And here, as I say, turn this thing around, I do think Eberflus has turned this thing around. I think he's got the Bears heading in the right track, kind of like Doug Collins did. But his constant poor management decisions, his timeouts, his challenges, his accountability, it's all costing this ball club, man. And for me, I've seen this. I've read this book. I'm over it. It's time to move on, shut the door, get someone in here that knows how to manage a football team, that can lead this team, because I'm telling you, and Kyle, you're seeing it too, they're over it. It's time for change at the top. On the sideline. I shouldn't say at the top. On the sideline.
Sean, I don't necessarily agree with that people saying that the Bears aren't willing to pay an expensive head coach. I mean, we've read articles about Ben Johnson in the offseason, and people say that he was asking for more than any other available free agent coaching candidate. But I mean, as far as I can tell, the Bears are very much like the Cubs. They're like, hey, let's spend a bunch of money on the manager, and then we don't have to spend that much money on players, and he can just make bad players better. Like, that's kind of how the Bears have been. The Bears overpaid John Fox, guys, by every single – you could ask any expert in the history of football. When the Bears signed John Fox, every expert in the world was like, how much are you giving John Fox? The guy who the game has passed by 15 years ago, and you guys are giving how much money? And then you're going to draft a rookie quarterback and give him to John Fox? You guys are nuts. I mean, I don't think the Bears are opposed to paying a head coach a lot at all. I think it just means they can spend less money on the players on the roster. I think that's the kind of the Chicago way, right, Sean?
Hey, and again, for me, I just read this today. I don't know if it's true or not. I hope it's not, and I hope they get the guy that can cultivate number 18 into our Peyton Manning, our Josh Allen, our Pat Mahomes. You know, they need to find that guy, and that's kind of why in January, and it wasn't even a knock on Flus, because I thought at the end of the year he did a fantastic job getting the team rallying around him and the Bears winning a bunch of games. I just didn't think he was the guy to groom our quarterback, our number one pick, into the guy that we all want to see. And I'm not going to say I'm wrong, because I don't think I am.
How are they over the thing? I mean, you guys, how the amount of coaching candidates are going to be available in the offseason, especially offensive minds.
Yeah.
I mean, you could almost close your eyes and point to one, and it's going to work out. I mean, all the coaches you just mentioned, Sean, and you know, Cohen's another one that you didn't mention, like
Liam Cohen,
all these guys. Almost any one of them is probably going to have some success as a head coach in the NFL, because they're all very brilliant offensive minds, and that's what you need in the NFL today, right? We've seen it with Sean McVay. He was very young when he was hired.
Absolutely.
We've seen it with Kyle Shanahan. He was younger when he was hired. I mean, this is not the Bears don't have to be cute or come up with some revelation to change the game, the NFL. Just follow what other teams have been doing for the last 10 years. It's working. It's clearly working. All these teams that are going and hiring young offensive minds, it's worked out for almost all of them. So just pick the guy, go talk to all 5, 6, 7 guys, interview each one of them, and whoever sounds the smartest to you, whoever sounds like he has his goals and the direction he wants this team to go, are the most black and white of all of them. The guy who knows what he wants, he set his goals, and he's going to reach them, and hire him. I don't understand it. Like, no. I'm sorry, Sean, but the 4 coaches that they narrowed it down to when they were hiring Matt Eberflus,
I didn't want any
very good coaching candidates to me. I'm like, well, how? And, even Dan Quinn has found early success in Washington. I'll give him that much. I'm not going to take that away.
Well,
I don't like Dan Quinn as a head coach. I didn't like him when he was in Atlanta. I think ultimately that's going to end up. The Washington fans are going to end up saying, on Dan Quinn. Yes, I think Dan Quinn looks a lot better because that offense. Cliff Kingsbury. If Kingsbury left, I think they'd be in trouble. I think the same could be said for Dan Quinn. I think Dan Campbell. Once Ben Johnson leaves that team, I think you're going to see some offensive woes in Detroit. I mean, this is just the way the NFL is going.
Unless they keep someone that knows his system well and they plug right in like his assistant. Maybe.
So let me ask you a question.
What?
Is it just me, or maybe he's just trying to have fun and have inspire the players and get them more involved? But is it just me, or does it seem like Ben Johnson is kind of like trying out for a coaching job? I mean, like every week there's like 4 or 5 crazy gadget plays where he's like, hey, look what I could do. Look what I could do. Look what I could do. These plays where you see like a pass, and then in the middle of the route, they hand it off to another guy. He runs the opposite way and score a touchdown. I mean, the Bears don't even know what that is. They don't even know what that means. They're like, what is happening there? Did they just pitch the ball in the middle of a route? Like, you just need one of these guys who's innovative, a guy who's smart, a guy who can take advantage of the defense, a guy who spreads the offense out and makes it tough on defenses. That's all you need. And right now the Bears don't have that. I mean, Shane Waldron is not that guy. I don't think Matt Eberflus is capable of managing 53 personalities, especially the personalities you see in NFL football teams. I mean, you see all this stuff that comes out in the news, Sean. You see what types of guys these guys are. These guys are all very strong-minded men. They were given millions of dollars when they were young. They're on television. They're multimillionaires. They're famous. It's tough to manage 53 personalities, and I don't think Matt Eberflus is capable of doing that. I really don't. I don't think he's that guy. I just don't think he's that guy.
I agree. And Dano, I agree with you 100%. There is nothing more important than the development of Caleb. Every decision going forward should be with that in mind. Dano, well said. I agree with that 1,000,000%. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a tough few days, but guess what? we're going to turn the page to an ideal amusement Chicago Bears, Arizona Cardinals preview. We're going to stop bashing the old head coach for a little bit, and hopefully he learns something as the Bears take a trip out to Arizona to take on Kyler Murray, the Dachshund of the Desert. I am so excited about this matchup because, I love Kyler Murray. I really do. And I love Marvin Harrison Jr. and I love Trey McBride. But unfortunately, they're about to run into a Chicago Bears defense primed to shut them down. Ladies and gentlemen, as I always like to do, the Chicago Bears have a rivalry that dates back to 1920 with the Arizona Cardinals. They played 93 times with the Bears leading all-time series 58-29-6. They've split the last 6 meetings with their most recent meeting, happening on Christmas Eve. The Bears jumped out to a 21-0 first half lead. They won the game 27-16 despite 2 touchdown passes from the Dachshund of the Desert.
Sean, I don't think that's a very good nickname. I mean, I know you didn't give it to him, but I wouldn't. If I was Kyler Murray, I wouldn't be happy with that nickname.
I love it.
The Dachshund of the Desert.
He's got short legs.
Ferocious.
He scoots and he's fast. He's the Dachshund of the Desert. I love it.
If I were Kyler Murray, I'd be like, you guys please stop calling me that.
So as we're moving on, and here, the Chicago Bears defense held last week the number 1 offense in the league, the Washington Redskins, at 12 points. Took a miracle Hail Mary to get to 18. And let's be honest, I was looking at the stats today. The Bears actually dropped 1 point in their total points allowed. They're down to 17 points per game on the season. So, for instance here, this is one thing that I don't want people, and Kyle, me and you have been talking a little bit, and I know you were saying this is a kind of a trap game for the Bears. I kind of feel like the Bears aren't good enough to have a trap game yet because of their coaching staff. They have to be prepared for every instance because I just don't think this offense right now, who can't seem to get out of the gates very fast, is averaging 1.41 points per first quarter, is geared to say this is a trap game for us because, hey, I thought last week should have been a walk in the park because they were the more talented team in the nation's capital. They're obviously the more talented team here in the desert this Sunday as well.
To that point, though, Sean, the difference is that Washington's defense was ranked somewhere in the middle of the pack, and they slowed the Bears' offensive down. Obviously, Caleb had came out. He did not look comfortable. They slowed the Bears down. They couldn't stop the run, but the Bears just decided not to use it. I mean, that was ultimately the Bears' mistake. But, I mean, like you said, the Bears came out, lost this game, and their defensive points per game allowed dropped. I mean, the Bears are going to contain everybody. They're going to contain Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, and James Conner, and Marvin Harrison Jr. This team is not going to come out and score 27 points on the Bears. I don't believe any team in the NFL is going to do that on the Bears this season. I think the Bears are going to allow less than around 20 points every single game this season. Ultimately, this for the Chicago Bears for the rest of the season, it comes down to how good the opposing defense is. Because Sean, you just said, I don't think the Bears can be considered in a game like a trap game because the Bears aren't good enough. But I mean, let's be fair, Sean. They played the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 2 struggling defenses, and they beat the shit out of them. So, I mean, the Bears are capable of doing that. They are capable of beating the crap out of teams. What's more concerning to me in this game, or what's more important to me in this game, I should say, is, Sean, we've talked about this the last couple of weeks here, but leading up to that game against Washington, we talked about it. But the Bears' road and home splits are something we need to keep an eye on for the rest of the season because the guys, this is not Sean and I making stuff up. This is now a thing. I mean, Sean, do you have their what would you say the record was on the road for the last 2 years? You had it in front of you there.
The Chicago Bears have not won a road game on Sunday in their last 18 contests.
Yeah, I mean, guys, that is concerning. And I know most people are thinking, well, the Bears were kind of in a rebuild the last couple of years. We didn't really win many games at all. But, I mean, you guys, bad teams win games in the NFL. Bad teams win games in the NFL. So the ball, any given Sunday. We talked about this for weeks, Sean. The Bears, they're going to have a game where Caleb's struggling. And it's going to be the ball's going to bounce a weird way. Well, it happened last week, guys. I mean, it happened. It bounced off Tyreek Stevenson's hand into Noah Brown in the back of the end zone on a Hail Mary. This is what we talked about. You can't put yourself in that position because, as far as I'm concerned, based off last week, the Bears are still one of those teams who seem to have a losing culture. You can't come down to this like every other team in the NFL. If there was 25 seconds left against the Washington Commanders, I'd be like, well, this game's over. But for the Bears, there's 25 seconds left. I'm like, man, I don't like those 25 seconds, dude. I just don't like those. But real quick, guys, in case you missed the show on Monday, here's the Bears home and road splits for 2024 in particular. At home, the Chicago Bears are 4-0. On the road, they're 0-3. At home, they've scored 15 touchdowns for 119 points. On the road, they've scored 5 touchdowns and accumulated a total of 44 points, including field goals and touchdowns. At home, they're scoring 30 points per game, and I believe our top 3 in the NFL. On the road, they're scoring 14.7 points per game, and I believe our bottom 3 in the NFL. At home, they're allowing 15 points per game to their opponents. On the road, they're allowing 20 points per game to their opponents. So, I mean, you guys, this is clearly a different team at home than it is on the road. Now, maybe that's part of Caleb Williams' youth. Maybe he's just more comfortable at home because he's got the crowd behind him and he's still trying to adjust to the NFL and all the different crowd noise and all that stuff. But as far as I can tell, Sean, this is becoming a pattern. I mean, this is a thing. This is not something to take lightly.
Well, I will tell you this, that the Cardinals have played pretty well at home with the exception of getting blown out at home by they actually blew out the Rams at home 41-10. But they have played 3 of their last 4 games have been decided by less than 2 points. And this, with Matt Eberflus, has now lost 5 games in which the Bears have had the lead in under 3 minutes of play. In all of those instances, they've allowed a touchdown. A lot of bad tendencies for him to blow things up at the end of football games. Now, the other thing for me is I know we all say Arizona's not that good. They started off 1-3. They're 3-1 in their last 4 games. They're tied for the lead in the NFC West. Their numbers are not that great. As we get into them, the Bears defense is ranked 11th in the NFL against the pass. They're allowing the 12th fewest yards per pass attempt and surrendered the fewest amount of touchdown passes. Arizona's offense last week was able to come back in a game against a top 5 pass defense. They were able to come back because they were down 20-10 and wound up winning that game 28-27. So this is a team that may not be statistically very well, but man, do they have a lot of fight in them, and they don't quit. And if the Bears blink, they're going to pounce. So I don't think this is I'm not going to say this is not going to be an easy game for the Bears. I don't think any game is going to be an easy game for the Chicago Bears, especially after what I saw last week in the nation's capital. So I'm a little weird.
I think the Patriots is going to be an easy game for the Chicago Bears, man.
Okay, so I'll give you the Patriots. I don't know about this one, man. Here, we've talked about this, Kyle. In the last, 2 weeks, 2 games that they played, the teams have dropped 6 touchdowns. Now, 2 of them, I'll take 2 back. I'll say the Elijah Hicks, he could have blown up Gabe Davis, and he could have dropped that ball anyways. The Tyreek Stevenson ball to Zach Ertz that he had his hand on, that he came down in the end zone. That was a good defensive play. He followed all the way down the ground. He caused an incompletion. So if you want to take those 2 away, they still dropped 4 touchdowns, the opposing teams. That's a little bit of a problem that people are overlooking when we say the Bears are dominant. Because if you add those touchdowns in, those numbers start to drop and they're not as dominant. So I'm just.
Well, Sean, if you look at this game on paper,
100%.
No, listen, but tell me I'm wrong. So listen to this. This is very interesting to me. I was thinking about this today when I was looking at the Arizona Cardinals team statistics. Do you think that Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels play very similar style of football?
Yes. I mean, I would.
They want to win with their arm, right? But if they have to, they will run. They're both the same guy. I mean, they're both good passers, but if they have to, they'll run the ball, right?
Correct.
I mean, we've seen that.
I would agree with that.
Okay, now who's the Washington Commanders' best receiver?
Mr. McLaren.
Okay, now who's the Cardinals' best receiver?
Well, you'd think it's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Okay, so probably Marvin Harrison Jr. Who's the second best pass catcher on the Washington Commanders?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Maybe
Don't
Dynamic
overthink
Brown. Maybe Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz. Who do you think the second best pass catcher on the Cardinals?
Oh, it's Trey McBride for sure.
So, Sean, you're looking at almost this. They're about to play almost the same team. I mean, this team, they have almost the same rushing statistics as the Washington Commanders. Their number one pass catcher is the wide receiver, number one wide receiver. The number two pass catcher is their tight end. They don't really have much outside of that. I will say Michael Wilson is better than Dynami Brown, whatever that guy's name is.
He got hurt last week. He might not be in this game.
Well, not to mention, man, Michael Wilson disappears anyway. I mean, I've watched him in fantasy for the last year and a half. The guy, there's games where he shows up and there's games where he does absolutely nothing at all. Some of that might be on Kyler Murray, but for the most part, I think Michael Wilson, that's just kind of who he is. I don't think next year Michael Wilson's going to end up being a top 15 receiver in the NFL. I think this is who he is. I think he's inconsistent. So realistically, if you look at this game on paper, the Bears should almost use the same exact game. Their defense, at least, should use almost the same exact game plan they had going into last week and this week. Put a spy on Kyler Murray and keep your eye on Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz. This time it'll be Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. I mean, those really are their two options. And actually, Sean, Brian Robinson and James Conner have a very similar running style as well. They're both violent runners. They're both big guys.
So let me ask you this question. Last week, the Redskins were able to, the Commanders were able to amass 461 yards. Mm-hmm. Now, whether that Ertz touchdown, there was another drop touchdown. So there's two drop touchdowns in that game. This could be a problem. At some point, the bend don't break mentality is going to break.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's going to be this week against Arizona.
Until it does, that I don't like the cover to the Tampa 2s. I don't like those defenses. I don't like to prevent defenses. I don't like zones, but it's working for the Bears, man. I mean, this is, you're talking about almost an entire year, almost an entire season going back to last year of this bend don't break for the Bears, and it's working. I mean, they'll let you get yards. They've done it almost every game this year, just like the first drive against Jacksonville. They walked right down the field, and what did they do? They ended up kicking a field goal. And you know what? Another thing about the drop touchdowns is maybe the Bears just hit so hard and impose their will so strongly that these guys don't want to catch the ball. I mean, maybe that's just something that's happening when teams play the Bears, because this is becoming a pattern. I mean, these guys are dropping Noah Brown drops a lot of passes against the Bears last week. He dropped 3 or 4 passes before he ultimately won the game. I think this just is kind of who the Bears are. I think they kind of play back. They let you catch the ball. They'll give you the underneath, but when you catch it, they make you pay for it. They're going to hit you as hard as they possibly can. The Bears have injured 5 players this season already. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Bears are a very physical football team, and they're letting you catch the ball, but you're going to pay for it. And I think that some of these guys are making business decisions against the Chicago Bears. But Sean, this game is very similar to the Commanders game. It's a very, very similar game. But real quick, guys, I just want to go over the statistics for everybody so they can kind of get an idea of who the Arizona Cardinals are. Arizona Cardinals this season have 155 first downs. Their opponents have 180. They have their third down conversions are 35 for 84. Their opponents are 50 for 96. So opponents are doing much, much better than the Cardinals on third down. Fourth down conversions, they're 3 for 8. And their opponents are 6 for 10. So their opponents are also better in fourth down conversions. Total offensive yards, the Arizona Cardinals have 2,700. Their opponents have 3,000. So almost 300 more yards their opponents have than them. Total rushing yards, the Arizona Cardinals are actually leading their opponents. They have 1,134 rushing yards as opposed to 1,127 for their opponents. So they are winning, but not by a large margin. Here's the one that gets interesting to me, and this might be a key factor in this game. The Arizona Cardinals, and this includes Kyler Murray, are rushing for 5.2 yards per carry. That's huge. In the NFL, that is absolutely astronomical number. That's tough that you cannot let them rush for 5.2 yards per carry against the Bears. Their opponents are rushing for 4.6 yards per carry. So that's also not good. So it's not like the Arizona Cardinals are great at stopping the run. Their opponents have ran all over them all season. Total passing yards for the Arizona Cardinals, 1,600. Total passing yards for their opponents, 2,000. So 400 yards less passing than their opponents. And then the Arizona Cardinals have 11 sacks on the season, and they've allowed 15 sacks on the season. So realistically, Sean, you go down and you look at this list, the Cardinals are worse than their opponents in almost every statistical category except for rushing yards, in which they're better by 8 yards on the season. I mean, this is another game where if you look at the teams on paper, as long as the Bears offensive line can hold up, and Sean, I'm glad I brought that up, because let me ask you guys a question. I pride myself in following football and knowing these rosters like the back of my hand. Here's the Cardinals defensive linemen that are going up against the Bears struggling offensive line. Zaven Collins, L.J. Collier, Daquan Jones, and Roy Lopez. Do you know who any of those guys are, Sean? Have you ever heard any of those guys? I mean, I think Collier I've heard
Collier is probably the only one.
But I mean, it's not like the Bears are about to face a defensive line that's just going to get after them every play. I mean, they have 11 sacks on the season. They're one of the lowest teams in the NFL at rushing the quarterback.
Well, here's a couple of statistics that I'll throw out there for you. Kyler Murray is out there. He's got 11 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions this year, and he's rushed for 2 scores. There's a couple other things that struck out to me to why this team might be winning. The Bears on third down conversions ranked 27th in the league. They're converting at 36% on the road. They're actually a little bit lower at home, which to me was kind of baffling at 32%. The Cardinals have gone 41% on third down, which ranks 8th best in the league. They're 3 for 8 on fourth downs this season. And another stat that I looked up, because this is reared its ugly head for the Bears constantly, was penalties. The Cardinals are one of the least penalized teams in the league. They actually are second least penalized team.
Sean, they're obviously very well coached because they don't turn the
They
ball.
are very well coached. This is my point.
They're actually +1 in the turnover ratio. But to your point, real quick about third downs, what did you say the Cardinals' third down percentages?
The Cardinals were 41.7%.
Second, and that's all, and that's great for them. But you want to know what the Cardinals are? You know what their opponent's third down success rate is? 50 for 96, so over 50%.
Well, so now you're looking at a weakness of the Bears, because the Bears are in the bottom half of the league on third down conversions, and they're on the bottom of the league. So this is an interesting matchup to see if this is a place where the Bears can work on some weaknesses.
It's not just the Bears; it's Shane Waldron. Go back and look at Shane Waldron's career on third down.
It's not Kyle. You've touched on this a bunch of times, so I will.
Yeah, this isn't changing. Yeah. I mean, this guy last year as the offense coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, guys. Shane Waldron had the worst third down percentage of any offensive coordinator in the NFL, and he's taken that and brought it over here to Chicago, and it's not good. Those are the most important plays in the game. That's the most important play. You have to convert third downs. You have to convert. You cannot get 3 and outs for the first 3 drives of this game. You cannot do that. You know what happens when you do that? When the Bears come out, the first 2 drives of the game, they're 3 and outs.
It deflates the team, man.
That gives inferior opponents go, we can play against these guys. These guys are not as good as we think they are when we look at the roster across the field. This is a team we can beat. We just shut them down 2 drives in a row. We can do this for the rest of the game. And you start giving them hope. And at the same time, like you just said, Sean, it starts to deflate your team as well. So their momentum starts to build a little bit and yours starts to drop. The Bears have to come at some point in this season. You have to come out of the gate and score. You have to score a touchdown on the first drive of the game. Even a field goal. Just give me a field goal.
You know what would be nice is if they came out and they worked the ball to DeAndre Swift and they got a little Cole Kmet into this game, because I'll be perfectly honest with you, man. We cannot have another game where Cole Kmet gets his first target late in the fourth quarter. DeAndre Swift and Cole Kmet, to me, are the 2 straws that make this offense, that stir the offense. They have to get these guys actively going, man. And again, I'm still baffled last week at how you didn't have him. The one catch he had, it was 14 yards for Cole Kmet. I mean, for the love of Christ.
Sean, there was a trivia question at the bar on Tuesday, and he said, who was the first ever person to get their face on a milk carton that said missing? And the guy at the bar was like, it was Cole Kmet on Sunday. Time and time again, the Bears find these things that work for them, and then they just abandon them, and I don't understand it. I mean, it's not like the Commanders are the best in the NFL at stopping tight ends. You saw late in the game, late in the fourth quarter, Cole Kmet was open time and time again.
Hey, I'll tell you this. You know, one of the worst teams against the tight end in this league, other than the Ravens and the Chiefs?
Let me guess, the Arizona Cardinals?
Yes, we're playing them this Sunday.
Yeah, you know what? The Bears are also not spectacular against tight ends. So Trey McBride, I do expect Trey McBride to have a good day against.
What up, Brando?
But you know what? We talked about this before, Sean. I think the Bears are willing to let short passes to tight ends like they did against Evan Ingram, who had a great game against the Bears, as long as that means that team's not willing to run the ball on the Bears. I think that the Bears are like, go ahead. You're not going to establish the run. We're going to shut the run down. We're going to commit to stopping the run. Go ahead, keep passing it to Evan Ingram. He's not going to win the game for you. Evan Ingram's not. Now, Trey McBride is better than Evan Ingram.
Trey McBride's a lot better than Evan Ingram. Although Evan Ingram's really good. I don't want to slight him either. He's very large, athletic individual. I really like Evan Ingram. But he's not Trey McBride. Go ahead.
Dustin Jones says here, if the Bears get the red zone, they're going to score touchdowns. They're amazing in the red zone, guys. So, yeah, Dustin, this is what we're talking about. We just need them to get the red zone on the first 3 drives of the game for once this season. Like in the first quarter, get in the red zone, please, for the love of God.
I think the Bears are top 5 in red zone.
Yeah, they are. The problem is in the first quarter of every game this season, they can't get in the red zone. That's where the Bears, I don't understand it. The Bears seem like they're like sleeping right before the game, and they just woke up and they're like, we'll come around in the second quarter. Like, guys, this is the NFL. You have to get on top of teams quick. You have to get out there and score points quick. You have to let the opposing defense know that you're going to impose your will on them. And Sean, like you said, I'd like to see the Bears get DeAndre Swift involved in this game early and often, as much as possible. I don't care if it means dump offs. I don't care if it means running him on the outside. I don't care what it means. Just get the run game established as soon as you possibly can. Get a couple first downs using the run, and then you can start to play the pass off of that. But once they start to commit to stopping the run, and Sean, we just talked about it. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals are not good against the run. They're not a good football team against the run. As a matter of fact, DeAndre Swift is going to be one of my starts of the week in fantasy this week. Arizona in fantasy at least, is ranked 27th versus the position. So that means they're not only giving up rushing yards, they're giving up pass catches to the running backs as well. DeAndre Swift has to be the key to the offense for the Chicago Bears. He has to be.
So really quick on that note, the Cardinals D gives up 128 yards per game at home, and on the road 153. So they're a little bit better at home, but still 128 is a lot. They've allowed 11 rushing touchdowns. I will take this away, though. Up until last week, they went 3 weeks without giving up a rushing touchdown. But Miami gashed them last week. A-Chain and Wright both averaged 9 yards a carry. You had Green Bay the week before.
Sean, that's insane. Real quick before you move on. That's insane to have two different running backs from the same team. I mean, it'd be one thing if one guy averages 9 yards a carry, because that could be 10 carries for 100, but only one of the carries was really big run, and the rest of them were small little. That's if two guys are averaging 9 yards a carry, that's who you are. Yeah. That's who you are. You allow 9 yards a carry.
I mean, it gets worse. I mean, Green Bay had 38 for 179 at 4.7. The Niners had 26 for $153. That was 6 yards a carry. Mason alone at 14 for 89. He was averaging 6.5. Against Washington, 37 for 216. Brian Robinson averaged 5 yards a carry against them. Detroit ran the ball 43 times for $187. Monty averaged 4.5. Buffalo 33 for 130. That's actually they averaged under 4 yards a carry. But the two things just to say, hey man, they are capable. They held J.K. Dobbins at 22 for 59, and they held Kyren Williams, one of the best running backs in football, 20 carries at 53 yards at 2.7 a carry. So it's to say the greater picture is they can't stop them, the run. But you also know they're capable, so you got to come prepared. You got to be ready.
You got to put an asterisk on some of that stuff. For instance, the Rams, when they played the Cardinals, were playing without their two best receivers. So obviously the Cardinals are like, hey, you guys, the game plan today should be just stop Kyren Williams because he's obviously their best remaining player.
Sure.
I think it'd be that stat line would look a little bit different if Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp were taking some attention away from that run game. But
that Rams game was the second game of the year, so it was their first week without those receivers too.
Yes. I do like what Brennan said there. Maybe come out and run a little bit of the hurry up on the first drive. And you don't have to do it every single play, but if you get kind of a rhythm, you start getting a little bit of a roll, then just kind of do that muddle huddle where they're almost huddling up a little bit, and Caleb is telling everybody to play. But they're not necessarily getting into a huddle, everybody down on one knee. Like I'm fine with that because it seems to me like that's right now where Caleb Williams is most comfortable when he's doing that hurry up offense. And it kind of seems to me, Sean, like a lot of these young quarterbacks coming in the league, because they're coming from these college programs, when they get to the NFL, they still want to run that hurry up offense. That's where they're more comfortable. And after a certain amount of time, these guys will get more used to the NFL speed and they'll slow things down a little bit. But right now, what does it hurt? What is it going to hurt? When the Bears did that last on Sunday on the fourth quarter, they looked really good when they did that hurry up offense. So they need to do more of it.
I was going to say, every time they've been in the no huddle this year, they've looked really good. Like they've looked really good. So
I love what Dustin says here. They are amazing in the red zone as long as they don't hand the football to a backup play.
That was my favorite play, Dustin.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dustin, I agree. They are amazing in the red zone, but that's if they do the things that they're capable of doing. Like I think Vernon sent a text out earlier today that said Roshan Johnson is 4 for 4 on 1 yard carries getting in the end zone. So what do the Bears do with that information? They give the ball to Doug Kramer, a backup offensive lineman who's never carried the ball before. Good job, Bears.
I will tell you a couple of things, though, that are one thing that's in the Bears' favor. The Cardinals have lost each of their last 7 games at State Farm Stadium following a road win, so I do like that. One other thing that I do want to point out is protection of the ball is going to be very important heading into Week 9. The Cardinals rank 4th in the NFL in forced fumbles at 8. They have 10 total takeaways, which ranks 12th in the league. The Bears obviously are in the top 10. They're number 7 in takeaways. And the other thing is the Bears have to get locked down on their special teams, man. These guys are averaging 68.8 kickoff return yards per game this season. So
they do have a return touchdown this year too, which is becoming more and more rare in the NFL.
Correct.
Although there was a lot of special teams on Sunday. It was a strange day in the NFL on Sunday.
Yeah, and as we get into this, man, the one stat when I was looking up stats, I was shocked, dude. We're in Week 9. Trey McBride doesn't have a touchdown on the year. I was shocked by that, actually. He's not on any of my fantasy teams, but for him not to have a touchdown, man, they don't really focus on that guy in the red zone. That's kind of crazy to me.
No, but in between the 20s, that guy is an absolute monster.
Yeah, absolutely.
This last week, he exploded, dude. He had one of his best games of his career. He had like some 15 targets on Sunday, and he caught like 11 of them for 130-something. I mean, he had a huge day last Sunday.
McBride does lead the team with 56 targets, 42 grabs, 446 yards, and the no touchdowns, which I just touched on. And Harrison Jr.'s got 50 targets, 25 grabs, but 411 and 5 touchdowns. And then you got Connor. He's had 129 carries, 557 yards. He's averaging 4.3 yards. He's got 4 touchdowns. He's also got 16 grabs for $155. So they do have some weapons to utilize. They do have some things that the Bears have to focus on. Overall, I feel confident about this football game. I really do.
So, Sean, give me your 3 keys to winning this football. What do the Bears have to do? 3 things they have to do well in order to win this football game.
For me, play smart football. Use your hits principle. You play smart football. Take the run away. Get after Kyler Murray. I know Kyler Murray hasn't turned the ball over a lot this year. He's only turned it over 3 times. But if you get that guy running out of the pocket and you have a spy on him and don't let him get loose and you force passes, he does like to turn the ball over, and he will. And he has a lot in his career. He just hasn't this year. The Bears suffered last week without turnovers, so I would like some takeaways. My biggest thing in this football game is get DeAndre Swift. We just read the numbers. Get DeAndre Swift active. Get him going. Don't stop. Use quick passes. Get Caleb comfortable. Just come in with a solid game plan, please. And be prepared on special teams because you're playing a very good special teams unit this week. Maybe one of the best you played based on some of these numbers that I've read. So come prepared on all 3 phases of football here, and let's get a wonderful victory. So get after Kyler, make him uncomfortable, run the ball, don't ignore Cole Kmet, and play special teams, man. Don't give them the advantage on the field. Don't give them short fields because Kyler Murray, dude, he'll get loose. He did against the Niners, man. He took off for a 60-yard touchdown. He will get loose. So,
I'm glad you brought that up, Sean, because my 3 keys to winning this game are run the ball. DeAndre Swift he should once again have another week of over 100 all-purpose yards. There's no reason that shouldn't happen. This team is not good at stopping running backs. DeAndre Swift has been the most dangerous player in the NFL, arguably for the last 5 weeks of the season. I think DeAndre Swift is more than capable of beating up on this team like he has the last 4 teams. My second key to the game is you just said it, Sean, do not let Kyler Murray get out and about. You have to keep a spy on him. Do not let him out of the pocket. They did a decent job on Jane Daniels. They have to do even better on Kyler Murray because he is a very elusive player. And then lastly, Sean, I don't know about you, and I hope Dustin and Bernard are listening because I'm sure they'd like to comment on this as well, but I am so sick of reading how good Malik Neighbors is and Marvin Harrison Jr. is and Brian Thomas is and all these guys. Okay, where is Rome Odunze? Where is Rome Odunze? You guys, this was the 9th pick in the NFL draft for the Chicago Bears, Rome Odunze. And not only was it the 9th pick, but Ryan Poles admitted himself he was about this close to trading up to make sure he could secure Rome Odunze in this draft. So then why isn't he being used? Because I can tell you right now, Sean, I wasn't paying that close attention to him, particularly the first few weeks of the season. But last week, that guy was open a lot. He was open all the time. And like Dustin said, once he gets the ball in his hands, Roma Dunze is absolutely amazing after the catch. That little end around he had last week.
I was going to just say that end around was awesome.
Yeah, he juked through those 3 tackles. I mean, they had him dead to rights 3 times, and he just kept on getting yards and getting yards and getting yards. The Bears need to start to integrate Roma Dunze on this offense. And to be honest with you guys, if you do plan on moving on from Keenanallen, which I think the Bears should, I don't think that guy should get 2 years, $53 million, especially with the season he's having this year. If you do plan on moving on from him and you do plan on making Roma Dunze ultimately your number 2, or maybe even if you think he's better than djmoore, your number 1, start integrating him into the offense right now. Start making him the guy right now. Like, take as much advantage of that as you can, because it seems to me like Roma Dunze to this point in the season, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's getting the least amount of attention of the 3 of them from the opposing defense. So get him the ball. Get the ball in his hand. Get him in space. I want to see Roma Dunze. I expect Roma Dunze to have a good game on Sunday. I do. I honestly expect Roma Dunze to have somewhere between 60 and 80 yards and maybe a touchdown. They need to get him involved. Roma Dunze.
We were talking about that, Kyle, about how much he was hoping this past week, and I think he led the league in open yardage, or what was it? I can't think right now. My brain.
Led the league in beating his defender per routes ran.
Thank you. Per routes
ran. Dunze was the number one receiver in the NFL last week at beating the defender per routes ran.
And we gotta get these things. We gotta get these things in order. And I hate to say it in week 9, but after what happened in the nation's capital last week, this game and how the Bears come out and how this team reacts, this is such an important game. Not only how the players react, but for the man with the headset on the sidelines. Because if Eberflus comes in and has this team come out flat, dude, shit's going to hit the fan next week, bro.
Sean, if this team comes out flat, and loses this game, you need to fire Eberflus, because you're going to do more damage. You're going to do more damage. You're going to start screwing up people's development, like calebwilliams, Roma Dunze. If he comes out and this team loses and they play poorly, you need to fire Eberflus as soon as possible, because he's going to start doing damage. Yeah. It's going to end up doing more damage than that's good. I mean, I know the Bears aren't – this is the team that does not like to fire people in the middle of the season, but this is almost becoming – if he does what he did last week, this is a necessity. This is absolutely a necessity.
100%.
And like we just said, Sean, I mean, Roma Dunze now is getting the third best cornerback or safety to cover him on every single play. How is he not getting the ball? I don't understand this.
They're saying that
doesn't make sense.
They were saying this morning that Caleb is being rushed out of the pocket too fast, and he's not able to locate his open receivers because he's under immense amount of pressure. I can see that a little bit, but I don't know. I'll see what they come out with. I'm almost speechless. I don't know what to say anymore, Kyle. I'm serious. I'm just going to get my final score out there. I got the Bears winning this one 19-16. I think they're going to win this football game. I really hope they do, because if they don't, I might not be here next Wednesday, because I'll be hanging in a closet somewhere from a noose.
Yeah, you guys. So I like what Bear Ski Film says. He says you need to let it be known to Ben Johnson that the positive this time is that the job is available. The Bears job is available. Right. Well, guys,
you meant the position.
If you make up your mind sometime in the middle of the season, the next couple of weeks, that you're going to move on from Eberflus, then fire him immediately and get ahead of the game. Go start asking. You can start once the playoffs comes. The teams are knocked out of the playoffs. Those teams that are in the playoffs, you can start at those guys are focused on winning football games. You can start focusing on, hey, can you ask teams, hey, can we interview this coordinator for a head coaching position? And 99.9% of the time, Sean, those teams respect those coordinators enough to say, yeah, of course, we want him to move on to bigger and better things. If you guys want to interview him for a head coaching position, feel free. The Bears need to get ahead of the game. If they decide ultimately Matt Eberflus is not the guy, then you have to get ahead of the game. You got to make sure that everybody is available to you, and don't do that thing where you interview 9 guys, but you really knew you were going to hire the 4th guy you interviewed the entire time. If you're going to interview your 9 guys, then listen to all 9 guys and figure out what kind of type of person they are, what they're made of, what their goals are, what their vision for this team. I mean, the Bears need to do something, because if Matt Eberflus comes out and loses this game to the Arizona Cardinals, who statistically are losing every statistical category to their opponents, and you lose this game, and the Bears are for you, Sean, how big of a difference is it to be 4-4 or 5-3? I mean, it's huge, astronomical. Huge. How big of a difference?
Not only that, man. This is another conference game. You cannot lose another conference game. I mean, they should technically be undefeated in the conference. This game is so important, especially because Arizona's leading their division right now. I don't care if they're not a good team. They're a playoff team right now. We have to win this game. We have to win this game.
And I will say real quick, I want to say something because I really didn't think about this until you just said it, Sean. But you said, you talked about how the Bears had 0 turnovers last week. I think for Bears fans, especially for Bears fans who aren't really like obsessed with the Bears like we are, the outside perspective is, well, the Bears don't let teams score. Their points per game allowed is so low because they force so many turnovers, right? But I mean, I didn't even realize that. I mean, the Bears didn't take the ball away last week from Washington, and they still didn't allow them to score any points. I mean, it was field goal, and then the Hail Mary. The Bears defense is so much better than people give them credit for. I honestly believe, Sean, you can look at all the statistics all you want, but I think when you're talking about on the field eye test playing, when teams are like, man, we got to play this defense or we got to play this. This sucks. We don't want to go up against. I think the Chicago Bears are the best defense in the NFL. I really do. I absolutely believe that.
And I think we'll get better once we get Kyler and Brisker back too. We're still missing.
And you guys, I wish we had some information for you guys on that, but right now the Bears kind of did what they called a walkthrough today. Yeah. So all the injuries were basically estimates. But I will say this, guys, I would love to be a fly on the wall in that facility today because I don't think there was any practice at all. I think basically what happened today was all of the Bears brass, ryanpoles, matteberflus, all these guys came and talked to these guys about what they say in the media, which sucks for us because Jalen Johnson.
We're not going to ever get it again.
Yeah, I mean, he's been so transparent on 670 The Score. There's such good interviews from Jalen Johnson.
Yes.
And now if they go in and they just started yelling at all these guys like, hey, guys, this stuff has to stay in house. You can't be saying your opinion about it, so on and so forth. You're going to get these interviews that are like, yeah, one day at a time. Next week's a whole new week. We just got to focus on one game. Like, I don't want to hear that stuff. Jalen Johnson is such a good interview on 670. I look forward to it every single week.
I'll tell you this, Kyle. We had our second leadership meeting today. We had one after the Colts game, but we had another one today. So let's hopefully this leadership meeting with Flus meeting with the team privately is going to turn this ship around for the love of Christ. I can't even. I can't even, dude. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard another team, and maybe because I don't follow teams as closely as I do the Bears and care about every waking moment of their existence. I don't know how many teams have leadership meetings 2 times in 6 weeks. It's like, it sounds like a clown show.
Pretty soon you're going to see Cole Kmet wearing a headset and Shane Waldron in a helmet on the field. You'd be like, we just switched spots, man. You obviously don't know what you're doing. I got this shit. You just sit down.
What you got on this game before we flip the script over to some fantasy plays and prop bets?
Well, Sean, like I said, that Hail Mary is so fresh in our mind. It's really, really, really tough to have confidence in the Bears right now, especially in this coaching staff. But ultimately, I do think the Chicago Bears will win this game, and I think they'll win it pretty handily. The only reason I'm saying that is because I think the Bears defense is legit. I think they're going to continue to do what they've been doing all season. The difference between this game and last week's game, you guys, is Arizona's defense is not good. People can talk about it. They could say, from time to time they show up. You guys, ultimately, their defense is not good. They're 27th versus the position against running backs. They're like 24 versus position against quarterbacks. They're giving up a lot of passing yards, giving up a lot of rushing yards. Ultimately, the Bears win this game 24-16. I think for another week in a row now, the Bears do not allow a team to score more than 21 points.
Oh, you have 24.
24-6.
Score. You switched it up on me.
Yeah, people probably think I'm a homer, but I like this Cardinals team isn't my least favorite in the NFL, but I do not think they're as good as people think they are. I think they're a trap game because they're so inconsistent. That's why I consider them a trap game.
I wasn't going to pick the Bears until I read that stat that they have lost 7 straight home games after a road win. They're traveling across the country. Usually those are factors in games. I guess the Bears are kind of traveling across the country too, but
you always got those stats. You always got those stats. You've always got those. You've always got those stats that are like, they're loose. They've lost 3 games in a row on Monday night if it's 74 degrees.
Hey, you know what? A couple of them over the last couple of weeks have rang true, baby. They've held consistent. There's a reason why those stats are out there.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we got our predictions out. We got the Bears winning in the desert, shutting down the Cardinals, not allowing them to get over 21 points. Real quick,
another thing that's going to be great about this game for the Bears. The Bears, we talked about you guys earlier. We talked about the road home splits. We talked about on Monday. It's not good. The Bears have not been good on the road for the last 2-3 years. The good thing about this game, guys, is I cannot tell you how many people moved from the state of Illinois to Arizona or how many people traveled to Arizona for these games. This is a perfect vacation spot for people from Chicago. This crowd, if I had to guess, this crowd is going to be about 50% Bears fans. So this might almost feel like a home game for the Chicago Bears. There's going to be a lot of Bears fans there. Sean, personally know like 20 people going to this game. Arizona.
It's a transplant city for sure. There'll be a lot of Bears fans there.
People from Chicago love Arizona.
Up there in Flagstaff, dude. He'll probably be there too if I know him. So,
yeah, Sean and I almost went, guys.
I was really close. You know who else is going to be there? Charlie. Charlie's going to be there.
Who?
Charlie from
Charlie.
Yeah. Nice. He told me he was heading out to Arizona.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Bears fans there, man. The Bears are going to have a good crowd.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, last week, as we flipped the page from an Ideal Amusement Bears Preview Wednesday to our Cash 'em or Pass 'em fantasy smash plays and prop bets of the week, we'll apologize early because I searched high and low all day and I could not find a lot of props that were out. I found a few, so you're going to have to check the website on the weekend because there wasn't much out. There are a lot of players that I happen to like, but couldn't get any numbers on them to go. But if we want to start here on the Thursday night tilt between Houston and the Jets.
Good luck with that one, Sean. That's a tough game.
It is a tough game, and I didn't find a lot in that game that I liked that was out, but I'm going to go with CJ Stroud under 225 yards passing. I'm going to give you some stats here. Mr. Stroud has played 7 outdoor games in his career. He averages 198 passing yards, a 59% completion percentage, and 6.5 yards per pass outdoors. He'll have no Diggs. He'll have no Nico Collins. The Jets are second in the league in defensive dropback success rate, and they're holding opponents to 161 yards passing per game. I, myself, my friends, am going to slam CJ Stroud under 225. How will the Texans score in this game? Well, as I just said, they'll have no Nico Collins and no Stephon Diggs, but they do have one Joe Mixon, who has 6 touchdowns on the season. My friends, he rushed for 102 yards in each of his last couple of contests. One was against the top 10 defense, if we all remember correctly. That was the Minnesota Vikings. He's carried the ball at least 25 times in each of his last 4 contests. He's averaging 5 yards a carry. And I will tell you this, he's averaging 80 rushing yards. He right now was at 102 passing and receiving. I would take that all day because I swear he's going to be the focal point of this offense. Joe Mixon has been way better than I ever thought he was going to be this year. I mean, he is every game he's been in, he's been over 100 yards. As he just said, against Minnesota, no problem. Top run defense. He still got the job done. CJ Stroud, or take CJ Stroud under 225 and rock out Joe Mixon. And I don't know if the numbers went up. I can look really quick as Kyle gives us a play. I got him at over 102 passing and receiving earlier today. His rushing total was at 86. He only had it was 18 receiving yards. So I don't know if they're not planning on him catching the ball too much, but he does it both. And I feel like he's going to have 100 rushing yards anyways. He's going to be the focal point of this offense. So, Kyle, what do you got? You got anything for Thursday night?
No, Sean, all I want to say about Thursday night is, man, I mean, you guys, I trust Sean. Sean's been good all season at this stuff, but this is a game. I mean, unfortunately, this is basically the only props that are out right now, but I do not like anything about this game. I do not like touching this game. I mean, we still haven't seen what the Houston Texans are going to look like without Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. And Sean, there's a good chance that these defenses in the NFL are now going to be like, hey, you guys, there's no Nico Collins, there's no Stephon Diggs. We talked about this earlier, right?
Yep.
What happened to Kyren Williams against the Cardinals? The second they lost Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, the Cardinals were like, hey, let's go stop Kyren Williams. I think the same thing is going to happen to Joe Mixon. I'm not saying it's going to happen this week, guys, and I'm not saying
it could.
Sean's bets, but
it could very
this game just scares the shit out of me. And Sean, I'm going to do you one even this.
Hey,
really
hold on, Kyle, really quick. That I got it at 102. Joe Mixon's rushing and receiving is already up to 111. Guys, I would say I'd lay off that and maybe just go to Joe Mixon's 83.5 over rushing yards at 111. That's a little rich for my blood.
Yeah, I mean, so say that the Jets commit to stopping the run and they stack the box. Who's winning the game for the Texans? I mean, who's going to win the game for them? I just don't see it, Sean. I mean,
Sean, you like the CJ Stroud under 225 better?
Yeah, Sean, I think the Jets win this game.
I do too.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, the Jets suck. They're not a good football team, and I think they win this game. I just think that the Texans are losing too many valuable pieces. This is getting crazy. I feel bad for the Texans because they're a team I like. They're a young team. Another thing that you guys, when teams are playing with their back against the wall, they seem to play much better in the NFL. We've seen it for years. The Texans don't have to win. What are they? They're 6-2 now?
Yeah.
They don't have to win the football game. They're going to be fine no matter what. They're winning the Jets have to win. The Jets have to win this game. If they don't win this game, their season is over. You can pack it up and go home. Their season is over anyway, but until they get that next loss, those 7 losses, they're going to assume they can win out, and they should assume they can win out and make the playoffs. That's what every team should assume, that they're never out of it.
100%.
I do actually have the Jets winning this game. This is a game as a better, guys. The only reason we're doing the Thursday night game for you guys or Sean is because there's really no other props out for the weekend's games. This is a game I would not touch. As a football bettor, I'm not touching this game.
I do have one more prop, and this is on a Sunday game that came out early. And gosh darn it, I forgot who they were playing. I forgot to write it down in my notes. Gosh darn it. Who are the Titans playing this week?
They're playing the Patriots.
Patriots, thank you. And if I read my notes, it says right here. I like Tony Pollard over his 65 yards rushing, and I love the anytime touchdown prop. I actually love the anytime touchdown prop a lot more than any other prop bet for this game. The Patriots are spending 151 all-purpose yards to running backs. They've also allowed 11 rushing touchdowns this year. Tony Pollard has touched pay dirt in every week except for one. I really, really loved him in this football game to cross.
Man, Sean, if you asked me another game this weekend, I wouldn't touch. That would be my second one. I mean, because I picked Breece Hall. I picked Breece Hall to score a touchdown against Tennessee. I picked there are a couple other guys. I picked a couple other guys to score a touchdown, and none of them didn't work out.
It was a bad week last week. And ladies and gentlemen, look, we've been really hot, and last week was one of those 40, 60 weeks that happened. I mean, Javonte Williams not really touching the ball. I couldn't forecast that for the life of me. I mean, he touched the ball like 10 times. Like, I didn't even understand that. I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I mean, they just kept. They couldn't stop him from passing. Bo Nix had his best game as a professional. Yeah. I will say this, Sean. I'm gonna remember National Tight Ends Day next year. Because holy tight ends! I'm like, are these guys? Do these guys really take this shit seriously? The National Tight Ends Day thing? They were going off, man.
They were going off.
It was like K-Dot and touchdown, Kyle Pitts touchdown, K-Dot and touchdown. Kyle Pitts. I'm like, what is Sam Laporte a touchdown? Every time I looked up, a tight end was scoring touchdowns or getting some huge gain. Like I said, even Trey McBride, who didn't score a touchdown, he had like his best game as a professional, excluding the no scores. But man, next year I'm going to take that National Tight Ends thing. Tight end station.
Yeah, we're gonna have to mark that down for the show.
Yeah, the worst part about it is I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know National Tight Ends Day existed. All right, Sean, do you want anything more props before I get into my stardom sit-ems?
No, I'm looking up a few right now to see if I got any because I think I might have. He doesn't have a prop out yet. Go ahead, Kyle.
Right. Well, first and foremost, guys, I'm going to say about this weekend. This weekend's a little strange. So normally what you do when you're playing fantasy football with me for particulars, and I'm doing my stardom sit-ems, I'm trying to find you guys that aren't obvious picks, right? It's guys that you're not like, of course, like I'm not going to be like, hey, start Saquon Barkley this week. You're like, yeah, no shit. He's in my lineup every week, even though he would never not be in my lineup. But man, this is one of those weeks where it's just very obvious. Like you got let's see, you have Saquon Barkley's playing Jacksonville, the 26th ranked defense. So he's absolutely going to go off. You have, there's a couple other ones that are really good. Oh, yeah. Kyren Williams playing Seattle, the number 30 against running backs. So Kyren Williams is going to absolutely explode. Yeah. You got James Cook against Miami, who's number 23 against running backs. He's going to absolutely explode. You got Aaron Jones against Indianapolis, number 24 against running backs. He's going to go off. You got who's this? Is Kendra Miller? Is
against Carolina? I don't think Alvin Kamara's hurt because I got.
Yeah. Is Kendra Miller hurt?
He might be.
Yeah,
I can look him up.
Alvin Kamara is going to absolutely go off this week.
Yeah, I actually have Alvin Kamara on the bottom here. I got him as my number 5 RB of the week
against Carolina. Alvin Kamara is going to have like 50 points this week in fantasy. I have him as a multiple touchdowns.
You want to know what was funny, Kyle? As you're saying this about this, and I was looking at these and I was ranking these top 10 tight ends or wide running backs. I was sitting here like, holy crap, man. I don't even know how to rank these guys 1 through 10 this week.
All the studs. And then you got DeAndre Swift against Arizona. All the stud running backs this week, the guys you would draft in the top 2 rounds, they're all playing a bunch of garbage, guys. This is going to be even Bijan Robinson's playing Dallas. I think they're number 26 versus the position. I mean, all these guys are going to.
Hey, Kyle, stop right there. Stop right there, because I do have a prop, as you say, Bijan Robinson. I like his over rushing and receiving. Get on this quick because this number is going to jump, dude. 99.5 rushing and receiving. He's been over this number 5 of 7 games. And let's be honest, guys, Dallas is still missing a ton of defenders, and their defensive unit absolutely sucks this year.
Well, Sean,
Bijan should feast.
And you know what? Bijan Robinson is starting to get the attention of the coaches. He's starting to become the starting running back for this is not a 50-50 split anymore. Over the last 4 weeks, guys, Bijan Robinson is the starter and Tyler Algier is the backup. To that point, Sean, I don't know if you watched any of the Falcons game last week, but Tyler Algier did not look good last week. I don't know if there's something going on with him or not, but he did not look good at all. I don't know, maybe if he's losing confidence in himself because they've started to give Bijan more carries, but he just did not look good. I'll say it again, guys.
This only benefits me.
I'll say it again, guys. I mean, you got Bijan Robinson versus the 29th ranked defense against running backs. You got Devon Achane versus the 28th ranked defense against running backs. You got Kyron Williams versus the 30th ranked defense against running backs. You got Saquon Barkley versus the 26th. You got Alvin Kamara versus the 32nd. I mean, you got James Cook against the 23rd. You got Aaron Jones against the 24th. This week is going to be where all the studs look like studs. That's what this week's going to be in fantasy.
I agree. So, and here I'll give you one that's not in the top 10, playing a good defense that I think is going to bounce back because he's my number 10 RB of the week. Is Jonathan Taylor versus Minnesota?
Yeah, Minnesota's tough. They're a tough run defense, but they're starting to look like Minnesota.
Starting to look a little bit more susceptible.
Yeah, so my start of the weeks, guys, I'm sorry, this may probably not going to help you too much. Maybe the second one will, but DeAndre Swift versus Arizona, last week, we talked about it already. I'm not going to get too much into it here, but Achane and Jalen Wright both averaged over 9 yards a carry. I mean, that's ridiculous, guys. There's no team in the NFL that should be allowing 9 yards a carry to it. These are professional football players. That shouldn't be happening. If you have DeAndre Swift in your team and for some reason you have 5 other stud running backs and you're thinking about maybe mentioning them, don't put him in your lineup. I think he's going to have over 100 yards rushing, receiving. He's done it almost, 5 games in a row now. Aaron Jones versus Indianapolis, another one I just mentioned, guys. I think Aaron Jones is going to have – I know Aaron Jones had a pretty disappointing game last Thursday against the Rams, but it really wasn't Aaron Jones' fault. If you look at his numbers, he actually played pretty well. They just didn't give him the ball that much. Became a passing game there. They went down to the Rams early, and they had to kind of catch up. But Aaron Jones versus Indianapolis last week, Joe Mixon had 25 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown and 4 receptions for 32 yards against Indianapolis. So they're not just bad against the running backs. They're bad against the running backs catching passes as well. If you have Aaron Jones, make sure he's in your lineup. Start him. And then my sit-em of the week, guys, my 2 running back sit-em of the weeks are actually on the same team because I don't know which one's going to play. I can't figure this team out for the life of me, but it doesn't matter who's starting. Travis Etienne or Tanks Bigsby, do not start them against Philadelphia. Philadelphia is number 5 in the NFL against running backs this season. They held Chase Brown and Zach Moss to under 3 yards per carry last week, and their secondary is not that good. So teams are going to continue to try to take advantage of the Philadelphia Eagles secondary. They're not going to run the ball a lot because they're going to abandon the run early because they're able to pass. And Philadelphia this year has gotten better at stopping the run every single game this year. And as you guys, to that point, guys, Philadelphia looks like a very good football team. And we talked about this before the season. We all have been winning the division. Man, they're starting to look like they can be a team who can compete for the NFC conference championship game. Sean, do you want to get anything else on running backs? Like I said, guys, this is a very obvious week. Those names that Sean has listed at the bottom of the screen there, guys, those are all just – if you have any of those guys at all, you're going to have some huge points this week. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Kyron Williams, Devon Achane versus Buffalo. Another one I do like, Sean, I almost wrote it down here, but I scratched it off. But I think we'll have a sneaky good start as Kareem Hunt versus Tampa Bay, who you got listed at number 9 there. Kareem Hunt is clearly become the
He's on fire, dude.
we were like when they signed him back, we were like, well, They would have had him on the team already if they thought he was that good.
Right.
I think Carson Steele and these guys. No, you guys, Kareem Hunt is. Sean made a very good point earlier in the year. How Kareem Hunt didn't have a job starting the season is
Right, dude.
That guy must just be an asshole or something. Nobody likes him. Every time he gets into a team, he plays very well. I've never seen him play poorly ever. I mean, I know he had the domestic violence, and it wasn't a domestic violence thing he had when he was on the Chiefs.
I think so.
But man, since then, he has been nothing but a good football player. There's no reason why he shouldn't be a starting running back in somebody's team somewhere. Another sneaky good pickup for running backs, guys. If you have a spot on your bench, I'm going to repeat that. If you have a spot on your bench, you guys, Khalil Herbert has played in every game this season except for Sunday against Washington. He was a healthy scratch. And I think the reason he's a healthy scratch is because I think ultimately the Bears just are going to move him. I think the Bears are planning on moving Khalil Herbert
pretty quickly.
So if he's available in your fantasy league and you have an open spot on your bench, put Khalil Herbert on your bench, because it wouldn't surprise me at all if by next week he's the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys. That would not surprise, because the whole Delvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, whatever the shit they got going on there, that stuff's not working anymore yet. I wouldn't be surprised. Khalil Herbert's going to be cheap. He's probably going to be a 6th or 7th round pick. Not going to cost them that much. I would not be surprised in any way, shape, or form if Khalil Herbert is the starting running back for a team like the Cowboys next week, guys. So if you got a spot on your bench, just throw him down there just in case. And if he does end up becoming a starter in the NFL, guys, I think Khalil Herbert is capable of being a very good running back. So
I love Khalil Herbert. You know why I love Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, Sean loves anything that comes out of Kansas.
That's my dog.
All right, so since there's really not that much to get into running backs, guys, like we said, this is, for me, I've never seen a week like this. This is the most obvious, like, just start all your studs. Start all your studs in running in fantasy for running backs. All the studs are playing garbage. They're all playing tomato cans.
Hey, guys, too, and when I do get this out, I'm going to be pounding Barkley's rushing and receiving over. I think he's going to absolutely destroy Jacksonville. And the guy from the Motor City, man, Jahmyr Gibbs, is just on an absolute tear right now. The Packers suck against the run. I'm going to be pounding his over as well. Probably him and Monty, maybe anytime touchdowns.
Yeah, Sean, I'm getting to the point. I mean, this is 2 years in a row now. I'm getting to the point now where I wouldn't be uncomfortable drafting Jahmyr Gibbs in fantasy in the 2nd and David Montgomery in the 4th.
No, hell no.
These guys are, I said this before, didn't I, Sean? I think this was before the season started, maybe after week 1. They are the definition of thunder and lightning. I mean, you could not define that role any better than David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They have perfected the art of thunder and lightning. What do they call themselves? Sonic and Knuckles or something stupid like that?
Yeah, I have no idea.
But I mean, man, those guys are the definition of David Montgomery will pound the ball up the middle and make you suffer and make you pay and hurt you. And Jahmyr Gibbs will run right around you. I mean, those guys are absolutely. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of my favorite players in the NFL to watch. I absolutely love watching him. So you give him any space at all, and it's 60 yards and a touchdown for that guy. All right, Sean, I'm going to move on to wide receivers.
Hold on. Before we move on to wide receivers, I just want to get this out there. We don't know because it's only Wednesday. But if you want to try and make a smart bet, throw some money on the Lions -3.5. We don't know the Jordan Love news, but I promise you this: if Jordan Love does not play against Detroit, Detroit's going to win that game by more than 3.5 points. I don't care that it's in Green Bay. That's just me thinking out loud. I don't know what the injury status is going to be, but if that dude's not in there, I think the Lions are going to destroy Green Bay.
All right, and then for wide receivers, guys, my 2 sneaky pickups of the week are going to be, if he's still available in your league, you guys, the Panthers just traded away Deontay Johnson. So if Adam Thielen is still available in your league, and he's available in both my leagues, I went look today, go pick up Adam Thielen, because he is now the number 1 receiver for the Carolina Panthers, and he's going to get targeted a lot. Another guy who's kind of in that same boat. Sean, do you want to, since you had him, who's your sneaky pickup of the week? You want to just say it before I do?
Jalen Coker.
Jalen Coker also, and Xavier Legette. All 3 of these guys, if they're playing a bad defense, eventually, guys, you're going to start to figure out who's number 1, who's number 2, number 3. But right now, I don't really think there is any number 1, number 2, number 3. I think they're all going to kind of get the same target share. Any one of those guys could be serviceable against a bad team. Another guy who you guys should go pick up if he's available. I'm sure all of you guys have seen by now that DeAndre Hopkins was traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. In Sean and I's league right now, Calvin Ridley is still available as a free agent.
I can't believe that.
It's insane. He had an amazing game last week. He had over 100 yards receiving in the first quarter. Guys. I don't think Kelvin released some amazing wide receiver. I think he's kind of like least worst stuff. He's basically going to get forced targets. Well, there's nobody else to throw the ball to there, so he's going to get forced targets. Another guy to keep your eye on in that offense. I'm not saying I love him, but if you're in a really, really tough spot, Westbrook Akine, I think is how you say his name, is another guy who every time he plays, every time he gets a start, he scores touchdowns. So if he's available in your league and you're really, really desperate, and there's just nothing else, you're in a 14-man league, the waiver wire is absolutely just disgusting. Keep an eye on Westbrook Akine. I think he could be a good player for them as well. I start him of the week at wide receiver, guys. This week is Josh Downs versus Minnesota.
Oh, you bastard.
Yes, Josh Downs has been very up and down since he came to the NFL last year. But let me tell you something. Joe Flacco is not Anthony Richardson. Joe Flacco is a good quarterback. He's proven it for the last 2 years in the NFL. I don't care how old he is. The guy can still throw the ball. He still has good vision. He's still good at reading progressions. Josh Downs is going to be at his best when Joe Flacco is the starter for that team. Anthony Richardson is averaging something like what, Sean? What is it, Sean? Like 10 completions a game. That's not enough completions to go around. Joe Flacco is going to have 18, 20, 22 completions in this game. I'm sure Josh Downs is going to have 6 or 7 of them. He's probably going to have a good game. He's playing Minnesota, who is ranked 31 versus the position, guys. Let me give you real quick, guys, over the last 4 games. Listen to this, Sean. Minnesota, their last 4 games. Number 1 receiver, Puka Nacua, 7 catches for 106 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 catches for 112 yards. Garrett Wilson, 13 catches for 101 yards. And Jaden Reed, 7 catches for 139 yards. From here on out, guys, if you got a number 1 receiver going against the Minnesota Vikings, play him. I don't care what team he's on. I don't care who it is. Play him. The Vikings, obviously, their secondary and their number 1 corner are not very good. So anytime you get a chance to play somebody against a receiver against the Minnesota Vikings, take it, do it. You know what, guys? I also would not have a problem playing Michael Pittman this week either. I think he's going to have a good week as well. Sean, do you want to get any before I move on to my next?
I was just going to say, to piggyback off that, I would take a sneaky flyer on A.D. Mitchell, man, with Joe Flacco out there.
Yeah, me too. I like A.D. Mitchell. And A.D. Mitchell, guys, his playing time has increased every single week since the beginning of the season. I think they think that he is the future, and ultimately they're going to try to get that guy involved. Another thing that's good about A.D. Mitchell is, I hate to say this, but Josh Downs, as much as I like him, the guy gets hurt a lot. He's hurt all the time.
He does.
A.D. Mitchell's going to slide right into that role the second that Josh Downs gets hurt, and it's probably going to happen at some point, as much as that sucks to say. My 2 other stardoms, guys, or 3 other stardoms, just real quick.
No, you got
it. Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen, or I always forget his name, Sean, the guy you just said. Cower or whatever was his name.
Oh, Jalen Coker.
Those 3 guys. New Orleans is 26 versus the position. I think I'm not saying that he looked good, but Bryce Young looked better since he got benched. He did come back. He did look better last week than he has in the past. I think it kind of a little bit of fire under his ass. The New Orleans Saints, particularly in the last few weeks, have been absolutely terrible against wide receivers. If you have one of those guys and you need somebody to start, you got nothing else, think about one of those Carolina receivers. I'm telling you, those guys are all capable of 4 or 5 catches, 50, 60 yards, and maybe a touchdown if you're lucky. So if one of those guys is available in your league, go pick them up, put them in your lineup. Anything else, Sean, before starting?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple quick ones. I like Franklin and Sutton and any Denver wide receiver versus Baltimore. If you've got a plug and play on this wonderful bye week.
Yeah, Sean. The reason I didn't put those guys in here is because I don't watch Denver. I don't know who's going to be the guy.
I don't either.
From what I've heard, they like Valet a lot. But why isn't he playing?
They have a lot.
If you like him so much, then why isn't he playing?
I will tell you this: if you notice, I mean, Nix and Franklin went to Oregon together, and they seem to be gaining a rapport in pro football together as well.
Seems like Marvin Mims is the guy who's being phased out of the offense.
Yeah, and I don't understand it.
I don't understand it, dude.
I did want to touch on one thing on the wide receiver position, because I gave you all, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I told everyone pick up Cedric Tillman. I think last week he was my long shot of the week. He wound up with 6 catches, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's got a nice matchup this week. But guys, keep this in mind if you're planning. I think number one, I think Cedric Tillman is an extremely talented wide receiver, and I don't think this is just a flash in the pan with him. I think this dude has real skill. But the next 4 weeks after this week, 5 weeks, excuse me, you have Marshawn Lattimore, Joey Porter Jr., Patrick Surtain, Joey Porter Jr., and then the Chiefs. So lower your expectations on
Agreed,
Cedric
yeah.
Tillman, but I still love the kid. He still might get you some production. And coming up against the Chiefs, don't forget David Njoku, lock and load. But I'd say start Njoku every single week against everybody.
Yeah, you
But
guys,
just
David Njoku is the must-start tight end every week. because
just be very, very careful with Tillman.
David Njoku might finish tight end number 1, and he missed 4 games this season. But guys, the only sit-em I have this week is because I know a lot of people have picked this guy up, and I know he's been kind of hitting people's lineups here lately. But Demario Douglas against Tennessee is just not a good matchup, guys. The Tennessee Titans are 2 versus positions.
Defense is so good.
Is starting to become a top 5 defense in the NFL. Not only that, but you guys, Jacoby Brissett is probably going to end up being the quarterback in this game, not Drake May. Jacoby Brissett is not as good as Drake May is. He should not be in the NFL anymore. He should not be playing. He's not good. And then on top of that, guys, listen to this stat. No Detroit wide receiver last week against Tennessee had more than 14 yards receiving. Not one Detroit Lions wide receiver had more than 14 yards receiving last week. As a matter of fact, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Lions' most dangerous player, had 2 catches for 7 yards. He did get a touchdown, and it was part of the game script. The Lions didn't have to throw a lot. They were winning that game because of special teams and defense. They were winning early. But I'm telling you guys, that Tennessee secondary is legit. And I'm telling you, Sean, I think Snead is sneaking his way up into the best corner in the NFL. That guy, everywhere he goes, you can't pass the ball. You can't pass the ball wherever he goes. That you can no longer pass the ball on that team. He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. I was kind of hoping he was on the Chiefs. It was kind of like a flash in the pan kind of thing, like we were talking about. But it's not, man. That guy's legit. He's the real deal. I start him of the week for quarterbacks this week, guys. Is Kirk Cousins versus the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are ranked 27th versus the position that Sean said they're riddled with injuries. It's not a good defense right now. In the last 4 weeks, Kirk Cousins has 10 touchdowns. And he had in 2 games against Tampa Bay in the last 4 weeks. One of the games he had 51 points. The other game he had 39 points. I know it's easy to say in the last 4 weeks these are his 2 best games, but you guys, the other 2 teams he played had pretty good secondaries. So basically, what I'm telling you is when Kirk Cousins plays poor secondaries, he goes off. That's what he does. And I actually like the Falcons a lot more at home than I do on the road. For some reason, that team Kirk Cousins in particular seems to play better at home than he does on the road. And it was the same in Minnesota.
I'll just throw this out there. My number 1 quarterback of the week, Jalen Hurts versus Jacksonville. I don't need to say much because Jacksonville is dead last in everything against the pass, against quarterbacks. Fantasy, they give up over 26 points a game. Jalen Hurts, my number 1 against Jacksonville this week. Hopefully, Saquon Barkley.
We've talked about this before. If you guys are new to the show, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, those kind of guys. Those guys should basically be in your starting lineup.
In your lineup.
But
here,
Sean's giving you guys his top players. He does that for in terms of you guys play week-to-week fantasy leagues on FanDuel or DraftKings, or if you guys are doing betting. So like Jalen Hurts, if his over/under rushing and passing yards is 210, take it all day.
Before you steal my sneaky quarterback play of the week, it's number 9 on my list. So I'm going to get it out there. He had a hell of a game last week, and I think he's going to back it up in Baltimore. Bo Nix. Yeah. I think he's going to do all right versus Baltimore this week. I got him 9 in my top 10 quarterbacks. First time I've ever listed him in the top 10. And I kind of flipped the coin because I was like, did Caleb bounce back? I was like, you know what? Baltimore can't stop the pass. And Denver seems to be clicking with their wide receivers and Bo Nix. So sneaky play of the week, Bo Nix. I got him at number 9 at Baltimore. Because what does Maryland do? Crab cakes and football.
God, that's becoming a part of this show. You guys, my other sneaky start of the week, if you're looking for somebody in the waiver wire, so your quarterback's on a bye or is hurt, banged up, something. Joe Flacco versus Minnesota is a great start this week, guys. Joe Flacco is in the last 2 years has started 9 starts. In the last 2 years, he has for the Browns and Colts, he has 9 starts. Guess how many times he's finished as a top 10 quarterback, Sean?
Dude, he's had to finish at least half of those starts.
5 of 9 starts. Joe Flacco's finished as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. And then just as recently as week 5, versus Jacksonville, he had 36 fantasy points against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Minnesota's secondary, guys, ain't much better than Jacksonville. So if he can do it against Jacksonville, he can do it against. I just went over the number 1 receivers with you guys against Minnesota. They all had over 100 yards. He's got 2 of them. He's got Josh Downs and Michael Pittman. I think Joe Flacco is an absolute. I have CJ Stroud in my fantasy league, one of my fantasy leagues, and I'm actually thinking about still going to pick up Joe Flacco and spot starting him because, man, CJ Stroud's passing options are starting to get pretty thin over there, man. And then, you guys, my sit-em of the week. I know he had a good game last week. I know a lot of people have picked him up to play him, spot start him. But Jameis Winston does not have a good start or a good matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers, guys. They're 7th versus the position. The Chargers defense is underrated. They're actually very good. And they have not allowed – did you guys know that – Sean, did you know that the Chargers have not allowed a quarterback to throw for over 250 yards this season? Not one.
Yeah.
Not a single quarterback this season has thrown over 250 yards for them. The Chargers are going to – Jameis Winston's not going to have a good game against them. I'll tell you that right now. So if you guys pick them up, don't put them in yet. Hold off on them for a little bit.
I actually picked them up, but I only picked them up for the Week 11 revenge match.
Yeah, we talked about that. In terms of starting to sit-ems, guys, that's pretty much all I got. Sean, anything else you got?
No, really quick, and I forgot to say this, and this is probably because everybody runs all over the Arizona Cardinals. Do you know the Arizona Cardinals have only allowed one receiver to be over 100 yards this year? Excuse me. And that was Brandon Ayuk in Week 8. He had 8 for $147. They've barely allowed any receivers over 80 yards this year, but I also think that's because they get destroyed on the ground. So as we wrap that up, I have one more little secret play of the day, and that's going to be just if you have Evan Ingram. I think he's a great play without Christian Kirk. Last year without him, he averaged 10 targets a game. It was 25% target share. He averaged 8 catches, 73 yards a game, and just under a touchdown. He was averaging 19 more fantasy points than any other tight end over that stretch while Christian Kirk was out. We watched him last week. He's an athletic freak. He gets open. Since he's come back, he's been a target whore for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're probably looking at no Christian Kirk for sure. I know Brian Thomas Jr. is still on the fence if he's going to play. But also, the other thing is plug Travis Etienne back in. He did practice today, limitedly, so keep an eye on that. But someone has to cut passes there. One more sneaky play. He had a phenomenal game last week, and I did forget to write down his stats. But
Sean, real quick, Christian Kirk, guys, is out for the season.
Oh, is he out for the year? Perfect. Even better for Evan Ingram. But on top of that, don't forget second-year wide receiver Parker Washington. Somebody has to catch balls there, and I think Parker Washington falls right into where Christian Kirk was. But I still think it's going to be Evan Ingram, Brian Thomas, and then Etienne.
Well, Sean, in the more pass catchers they lose, you guys, I know he's been really disappointing for you. Sean said he's his worst pick he's ever had in fantasy, but at some point, Travis Etienne's going to have to get involved in this offense. I mean, they're running out of options, guys. At some point, they need to start because Tank Bigsby is not a pass catcher. He's just not a pass catcher. The guy does not. I think he has 2 catches on the year. At some point, Travis Etienne's going to have to come back.
He's going to have to break out, man. I mean
they used a first-round pick on him. It's time to start using him.
I was going to say, on top of that, the Tank Bigsby's dinged up a little bit with a bum ankle, and I think he didn't practice today. So that sucks for me because I'm using him in my flex and nerd league. So,
I mean, Sean, can you name a player in the NFL that's not dinged up? Right, this is getting insane. Yeah, because Christian Kirk, it didn't say broke his collarbone on his player notes. It says shattered. He shattered his collarbone. He had to get reconstructive surgery on that thing. I don't know if he's gonna play football again. I mean, that's
and you know what? And when it comes to this with these guys, I mean, this is the second year. He ended last year on IR. He missed the last 6 games of the year. He's missing the rest of last year. It's starting to become a Christian Kirk thing. So.
Sean, and I've said to you before, the guys that you guys know what role I'm talking about. The Christian Kirk, the Jaden Reed, the Tank Dell, all those little small guys who play that rush the ball, catch the ball kind of role in their for their respective teams. Those guys they're injury prone, man. I mean, Josh Downs is hurt constantly. We saw Tank Dell break his leg last year. You got Christian Kirk just went down. I mean, these guys get injured a lot. When you get those guys who are 160, 170, 180 pounds playing in the NFL with all these huge dudes, eventually they're going to get hit the wrong way and they're going to get hurt. So just be careful when you're drafting in your fantasy leagues. Be careful to picking up those guys. Sean, real quick before we end the show here.
Yeah.
Am I missing? Is Jaden Reed gone? Where did he go?
I don't know.
Where is Jaden Reed?
You want to know something?
What the hell is going on, dude? That guy in the first 4 weeks of the season was the best player in fantasy football.
I almost put him on my sheet as the bounce back player of the week, but I did that last week and he disappointed me. So I was like, I'm not going to do it.
I don't get it, man. He's like gone, dude. I have not seen Gene Reed in 3 weeks now. I mean, he's gone. He's
Yeah,
basically become useless.
I wish Dontavion Wicks would bounce back because he would give me an extra player in a couple of leagues. But it seems as though,
Sean, I got bad news for you. If you got Wicks, Malik Willis is capable of throwing 6 completions in a game. So, you guys got any Packers wide receivers out there? I'd be very weary of sticking them in my lineup because Malik Willis is just not a passer.
The way Jordan Love looked in that game last week, I mean, I guess the body can heal, but I would almost say he's going to miss this week.
He could barely walk. That wasn't a strain. I think he pulled his groin. I think he may have even torn it. That's the most uncomfortable thing you could possibly have in any sport in the world. You can't play football, baseball, basketball, hockey on a torn groin, man. That's absolutely impossible. You could barely walk. You see him? Did you see the way he was? Yeah, he was walking off the field. That walk he was doing. I don't think you're going to see Jordan Love for a few weeks, guys.
Hey everybody, Bearsky Films, Dustin, Breaking Bruce, Elizabeth, Dano, Darius, Plank, Ant Mass. Thank you all so much for hanging out with two bozos on a Wednesday night. We really
say Darius and Dan. You got Dan and Darius on there, right? Thanks a lot, guys.
Dano and Darius. That should be a radio show. Dano and Darius at 3.
Yeah, guys, real quick. After this, Sean and I and Darius actually will be on the Chicago Sports podcast at 8:30 today.
8:30. Yep. Got a production meeting in 30 minutes.
So if you guys feel like talking some more football or just listening to some more about the Bears and more football, head your way over there, guys. It's a much shorter show. We won't keep you all night, but we appreciate all of you guys. We appreciate it. Without you guys, there is no us. We wouldn't be doing this anymore. So thank you very much for your comments. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate the love and support. Thank you, River Street Tavern, for being our first sponsor, and to Ideal Amusements for being our second. Thanks to Sean. It's always a pleasure, man. Love working with you. Yeah, breaking news, Bruce. Love you, brother.
Don't forget about the Bear Minimum tomorrow after the football game. They'll be chopping up the Bears' visit to the desert.
Brandon and Dennis will be all over.
Brandon and Dennis, you got it. You got it.
It's Brandon and Dustin, guys.
Hold on. Anything you want to get out there before we wrap up?
Shit. Fuck Green Bay.
All right.
Fuck yeah.
Let's go. That a boy. Awesome.
Hey, boys, everyone, let's hopefully the Bears can bounce back. The coaches aren't sitting on their brains this week, and we get a win across the country in the desert. We'll see you all next week. Thank you all for joining us. Until then, bear down.